We have so much to be thankful for and to celebrate with the Milwaukee Brewers. Yeah, we don't have a World Series championship, but we've got baseball in Milwaukee because of Geroge Petak, who passed away on Christmas Eve. We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You look around some markets in baseball and you wonder and you scratch your head. You say, how are they keeping their baseball team? How are they keeping their team? With the Milwaukee Brewers, I'm always delighted but stunned how Brewer fans continue to support our team. I trust me, it's great that we do, because considering there's been so much failure at the Milwaukee Brewers over the years, expectations, they're working against the system, you name it. The system is stacked against them. But here, Milwaukee Brewer fans, I always say they're the best fans. I don't have these championships to hang on to. The moments that the Brewers have had, the fleeting moments, are few and far between. Just got to go into the Sealy experience and look at that video, and that video makes me cry every time. Cry of happiness, because the city of Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin has got a baseball team yet. And in the 90s, there was nothing going on with the Milwaukee Brewers. Yet we were able to keep this ball team. The Brewers should not be in Milwaukee right now. They should be gone. One man in particular, well, Bud Selig saved it, but one politician who passed away on Christmas Eve celebrated for having a courageous, the courage, I should say, to change his vote against his constituents. We'll talk about that coming up next. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here over the holidays. And it's great. Had a couple of days off there. But here we are, Christmas Day, getting back to work. Right after the news with Geroge Petak. I was saddened to see that news. I was scrolling through Twitter early yesterday and saw the news about Geroge Petak, former state senator from Racine, passed away in his mid-70s after a long battle with cancer. But 30 years ago, 29 years ago, 1995, the Brewers were in a tough state. Not only did they want to build a new ballpark for a team that was drawing maybe 5,000-6,000 fans, but in 1994, they decided that they wanted a roof on the ballpark, and many people were just ticked off about it. I was doing sports talk on the old WAUK. Yeah, the ESPN station you heard down in Milwaukee. That was the old 1510. That was us guys. Okay, we were the forefathers on that. You know, we built that. So, all we fielded, I remember, for weeks and months, how Milwaukee should not have a baseball team, that people were not going to go see the Milwaukee Brewers, and we should not be spending this $600 million in a 5-county tax to get the ballpark financed through public financing. A lot of people were against it, okay? Especially the people down at Racine at the time. They did not want to contribute to a franchise. And I could see where everybody was coming from on this, because the Brewers were in a situation where salaries were starting to escalate. They were escalating, and the Brewers couldn't keep up. The most the Brewers could pay for a player back then was $5 million. You know, they had a Hideo Nomo they picked up off the scrap heap, who had some success. There was some, do we keep Hideo Nomo for a couple more years, give him a $5 million a year contract? That would have been like, the Brewers today giving $30 million to somebody. That was a big deal back then. When they re-signed Robin Yount in 1990, gave him $3 million a year. That was a big deal. He was one of the first $3 million ball players in baseball. Then in 92, they decided not to do the same thing with Molitor, and he went on to make $4 million a year. I believe it was with the Toronto Blue Jays, won a couple World Series there. So the point is, the Brewers were not spending any money. and fans were becoming disenchanted. There was nobody coming out the games. In April and May, it was, as you know, in Wisconsin, it gets cold, and nobody wanted to come out to the ballpark. And in September, kids go back to school, and the team could be in the pennant race. There were times in the late 80s, the team would be in the pennant race and be nobody at the ballpark. When Paul Molitor's hitting streak ended in 1987, 39 games, national story, there were more media covering the team at the time, national media coming into town, than there were people actually sitting in the stands. So that's where baseball was at. You could drive around town and nobody could name anybody for the Milwaukee Brewers. They were a faceless, nameless team, okay? And that's where baseball stood, okay? Baseball was dying in Milwaukee. And we all thought the Brewers were going to leave, okay? They were going to leave for a better place, warmer weather. And then the Brewers decided, not only do we want this stadium that and the Sealy side of this, Wendy Sealy, we need to put a roof on this ballpark. And that got fans even more infuriated, but it was the right thing to do. The roof helped keep this team in the state. All right. People got tired of going to games in April and May. And the argument was, okay, against that roof, well, people go to Packer games when it's 15, 20 degrees. Why wouldn't they want to sit out at a baseball game? Two different stories there, two different elements. A baseball game, people didn't want to sit through a 3-hour game in 40 to 50 degree temperatures. And there were times when it was uncovered, the old county stadium, where you had to wait. You didn't know if it was going to be a rain out or not. There'd be an April or May day. It'd be cold outside or it'd be rainy. Sometimes I went to the ballpark. You'd get there, and then an hour before game time, the forecast, we didn't have the technology in the 90s as we do now. They realized, well, it's just not, well, they had radar, but you realize that we weren't going to play a ball game. And so you got to the ballpark, you hung around for a game that never started. Sometimes you'd go 2 hours, maybe 9 o'clock. Then they said, well, we're not going to get this game in, especially if a team was making its last trip to Milwaukee. They had to get that game in, so there was no curfew, and they were determined to get that game in. So the Brewers thought, well, we should put a roof on this thing. And a lot of people were ticked off about it because they didn't want to spend the extra money. But it was the best thing the Brewers ever did, because now, let's face it, we've gone to Brewer games right now. How many times have we gone to games when it was cold outside, miserable outside, where you wouldn't have gone to the game if it was an open air stadium like they do down in Chicago? You want to go on, okay? But with the roof on, you parked your car, you walk in, and you're in the comfort of an indoor stadium. I mean, how cool was that? I remember the first couple of years just thinking, man, this is great. I remember there was a few snowstorms, excuse me, a few years ago, 2018, 2019. We had some bad snowstorms in April, yet plowing through the snow to get to the ballpark to go see a game. And I never underappreciate going to a game when it's cold outside, knowing we have the retractable roof. Okay. Yeah, there's certain things about AmFam Field, the sight lines and all that we'd change and all that. Nothing's perfect. But I think it's perfect for us. And them, the Sealies, Wendy, having the foresight to put that roof on top of AmFam Field kept the Brewers here. A couple seasons, they drew 3 million fans. 2008, they drew 3 million fans. All right. And you look at the Brewers' attendance, it's great. It really is great. It's a thing to do. But a large part is we're on a random Tuesday night. If they draw 15 to 20,000 on a Tuesday night in May, that would have been 3,000 back in 1994 or 95. So the point is $600 million. The excuse me, the financing for this ballpark increased, and they wanted public financing. So not only did people not want to build a stadium for the Milwaukee Brewers, but they didn't want to build the roof because the public financing would go up. Therefore, state senators voted by October 1995. Sorry, 1995. They voted 3 times. First 2 times it got voted down. I remember was listening to the radio station I had worked on, WAUK. It was a daytime radio station, so it was off at 6 o'clock at night, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night. But one of the other stations in town, 24 hours, news station, we listened to, and it would have live coverage from the Capitol, and we're talking about the financing. And I remember about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, the news came down that it got voted down, and Milwaukee was probably not going to have a baseball team. But they came back a couple of hours later. They were literally pulling people out of their cars as they were going home that night. And Geroge Petak, state senator from Racine, changed his vote from a no to a yes. He said he always wanted to keep the ballpark here. He just was against the financing. And there was a strong contingent from the Racine area that did not want financing. And if you know Racine, a lot of that town is Cub fans too. Racine has got a lot of Chicago influence to it. Okay. Not that there's not Milwaukee fans down there, but they have if you go to places down there, you see Chicago Bears and Chicago Cubs banners and all that. So that's got, even though it's the state of Wisconsin, it's got a lot of heavy Chicago influence. But Geroge Petak changed his vote, and he changed it from a no to a yes, and that the 5-county tax went through, and the Brewers were going to stay in Milwaukee. The tax went through. Build It Now, it was called. Build It Now. The Brewers have been talking since the late 80s about building a ballpark, and it's a good thing that they did not build that ballpark in the early 90s because it wouldn't have had a roof. But the fact that they kind of dragged their feet on all this because of the Sealy's couldn't keep up with the Joneses as far as finances were concerned in baseball. They didn't have the money to do it themselves. They counted on the 5-county tax around Milwaukee County and the 4 surrounding counties. And Geroge Petak changed his vote. Later, he was recalled as a state senator, and he lost his position. So here he is, 45 years old. He's out of a job because he changed his vote against the constituents in Racine at the time. The Brewers celebrated Geroge Petak throughout the first ball. I believe he threw out the first ball, the first pitch that was ever thrown at Miller Park. But Geroge Petak, who passed away Christmas Eve, I was sad to see this. I had met him a few times. Hell of a nice guy. He was out of a politician's job after he had been reelected for a couple of years. And so he went into private industry, had a successful career, died of cancer on Christmas Eve of 1975, of December 24th at the age of 75. But we as Brewers fans owe a lot to him for having the courage to change his vote when a lot of people did not want that public financing. And I get it. It's still a tough issue. Whenever a ballpark, I get the public financing. I understand it. That where some of you don't think that public financing should be used. But again, this is something that we always use. We could talk about that at a different time. But the bottom line is Petak, he injured his political career by changing his vote for the sake of us having Miller Park, now AmFam Field. Had he not changed his vote, that financing might not have gone through. And you know what? Maybe the team still stays, but an open air stadium or a stadium not as terrific as AmFam Field. But because he did change his vote, we were one of the first stadiums in Major League Baseball to have one of those retractable roofs. And now every ballpark who's in the northern part of the country, Minnesota, you know that they wish that they would have done that. I don't know how the Twins didn't. Obviously, there's never going to be one on Wrigley. Comiskey, that was built in the early 90s. After the old, there was the old Comiskey, and then, 1991, I want to say the new Comiskey Park was built, or whatever they're calling it now. They've changed it a few times because of the corporate change, the corporate name. But in the midst of those three ballparks sits AmFam Field. And we're going to get some rehab done on it. Obviously, the bill was passed. The governor just signed it. And we're going to get some of the bones in that facility are going to get reworked after 25 years here. And we're going to get heat added into that place. And we're going to have baseball at AmFam Field for a long time. And, someday there's going to have to be a new ballpark. We could think of that one down the road. I mean, look at some of the cities like Texas and Atlanta. I believe they had their ballpark for 15, 20 years, and then they built a new one. They built a new ballpark, and then they built another one. Like the Braves, they had Turner Field. Then there was another ballpark. Well, there was the stadium from the 70s and 80s. I forgot the name of the ballpark, Fulton County Stadium. And then there was Turner Field, and then I can't think of the name of it as right now. But yeah, they've gone through three ballparks. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to build another ballpark. The ballpark we have is great right now. And let's just keep it going. But thank you, Geroge Petak. We owe so much for you. You sacrificed your political career. And I think anybody who was negative about the roof or about the Brewers staying, you had to have changed your mind. Going to a game in April and May. And yeah, we don't have a World Series championship, but we have a lot of fun following our team. They disappoint us sometimes. At the end of the day, they always do. But man, it is our pastime here in the summertime, and we love it. All right, when we come back, talk about some questions that some of you have thrown off me here in the holidays that I'm going to get to. I haven't got to them last couple of days, but I'll get to that next. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. All right, everybody. Locked On Brewers. Good to have you along. You get us on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. And, of course, you also get us on our growing YouTube page. Search Locked On Brewers. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about that you were paying for twice? Well, that happened to me. This Rocket Money, a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. I was getting a fishing magazine. I don't know how I was getting. And I just got it, and I just put it aside and never thought twice about it. I thought it was free. And then I realized I was being charged for it. And Rocket Money, personal finance app, helped me find out the unwanted subscription. It monitors your spending, helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. Subscriptions, spending habits, goals you want to hit this year, spending habits. Like I go out to eat too much. Rocket Money can save you some money. It's a subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore. And you can get this Rocket Money. It can help you cancel your unwanted subscriptions, reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. It's like having a personal assistant for your financing. They'll help you with subscription. They'll help you lower your bills, find those unwanted subscriptions that you might be getting or stuff you might be paying for that you shouldn't be paying for because you're not using it anymore. rocketmoney.com/locked on today. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Good to have you along here on a holiday. So time to answer some questions. I also looked ahead about the Brewers. When opening day, March 31st, I'm going to talk about what the Brewers should be doing over the holidays. I'll get to that coming up here in a little bit. All right, some burning questions from Brewers fans. Tim asks, Chuck, what is Brandon Woodruff? How is his rehab process? It sounds like it's going fine, and that he's going to be able to throw off the hill beginning in spring training. We haven't got an update until since November or so, but it sounds like things are going well. And I know when I saw him in the locker room throughout the season, he was hanging around the team and always in a good mood. Great guy. You pull for him. But Brandon Woodruff sounds like rehab process is underway. Now let's find out how he is going to be when he starts tossing off the mound on a regular basis at spring training, and they ramp him up a little bit. But good news so far on Brandon Woodruff. Tom says, all about financing. Says, we do not need the Milwaukee Brewers. We should just get a minor league team in here. The Brewers don't deserve our public money. I just talked about this. And no, Milwaukee is a major league town. Milwaukee is a major league town, okay? Small market, but a major league town. They deserve to have major league products. We in Wisconsin deserve to have a major league product. We support our teams. We do a great job as fans supporting our teams. Better than some bigger markets. So no, we don't need a minor league. Minor league baseball in Milwaukee would not work. Minor league baseball. Hey, with all due respect to the Timber Rattlers, and they're great, and the Timber Rattlers are fantastic for a market the size of Appleton, a beautiful area like that. But single A baseball in Milwaukee would not work in a major league town. But yeah, no, minor league baseball. That was an argument back in the 90s. Oh, we'll just bring a minor league baseball team here. No. Another Mike. Mike says, can you finally admit that Joey Ortiz is an everyday ball player? Well, I never said he wasn't an everyday ball player. Okay. I want to see him at shortstop, but I think you want me to say, Mike, that Joey Ortiz is going to be a perennial all-star. I'm not there with him just yet on that. He had a nice first half of the season, some big moments. I remember him a game when he hit against the Yankees defensively was terrific. But yeah, he's got to get better. I'm too soon to say if this guy's going to Cooperstown or not. I think that's what you want me to say. If you're a big Joey Ortiz fan, that's great, but we'll see. I'm not all in on Joey Ortiz just yet. I think he's got a good future. Let's just see how that works out. James says, don't trade away a pitcher. We use 17. Don't you trade away a starting pitcher? We used 17 last year. I hear that. I get that. The Brewers, I talked about in my last podcast that they have 7 starting pitchers. And one of them, maybe a Savali, get traded. I don't know. Could happen as far as a package deal, but I get it when you look at the number of pitchers the Brewers used last year. 17 pitchers, weathered the storm, and still they won a division. Andrew says, Chuck, your take on Caleb Durbin and his height issues. Should I remind you that Altuve's 5'6" and Dustin Pedroia is 5'8"? Well, yeah. But how many guys 5'6", 5'7", and 8 didn't work out? Yeah, those are 2 examples of guys who did work out. Just saying, a guy who's 5'6" has got a limited upside. Let's see, anything else? Chuck, when are Brewers tickets going to be on sale? Believe single season tickets. I believe the season ticket packages like the 20 game packs you can get right now, and the season packages, but the individual tickets, they don't go on sale like for another couple months right now. So good question. I'm going to talk about what the Brewers should be doing in that area. We'll get to that coming up next real quick here. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. FanDuel, the great time of the holidays here. We got sports going on all the time. There's college basketball. Even on Christmas Day here, there's college basketball in a Hawaiian tournament. Hawaii has got a tournament going on right now. where they got 4 games going on today. So there's sports to be had. You get tired hanging around talking to your relatives all day long. Well, you want to be able to, maybe bet a little bit on maybe some of the NFL games, a couple of those going on. The NFL playoffs are coming up shortly. Right now, new customers at FanDuel, get this. You can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So $250 you're going to get deposited in your account if your $5 bet wins. So many ways for you to pick up a win. I love betting the live lines. I did it on Kansas City again this past weekend. They were down, rolled back the win. Buffalo as well. They got down 14-0 against New England. So they went from like a minus 1,400 on the money line to minus 175. I was all over Buffalo, and Buffalo came back and won. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel.com. The live betting on there is just fantastic. Your chance at $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And I'm Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. The Brewers, what they need to do, somehow find a way where you can have single seats available for opening day, for the season, for Christmas. I mean, wouldn't that be a great Christmas gift? You could buy single seats for Milwaukee Brewers games. I mean, we're always looking forward to trying to figure out what we're going to get our friends or relatives for Christmas. They got to figure out a way where you can buy Brewers tickets for Christmas shopping. And they should start that right around December. I mean, the schedule comes out in July now, July and August. Let's figure out a way where single season tickets, where we don't have to wait till like February or March. We should be able to buy those not spring training tickets, regular season single game seats now for Christmas presents. I mean, what am I missing on that? They're not available to February or March. Perfect Christmas gifts. Brewers tickets. When I was a kid, I used to get Bucks tickets during the season for Christmas. They would get a Sunday afternoon game at the arena against the Boston Celtics or Philly or the Phoenix Suns or someone like that. But Brewer tickets, single game seats should be available for Christmas presents. That's something to Brewers. Why does it take me to figure that out? There's got to be a way where they can offer tickets that you could buy for Christmas presents for your family. I mean, come on. Tell me they wouldn't have a run on that, on buying tickets online or wherever for Christmas, single game seats. Not wait till February to get this done. March 31st, I checked. Home opener against the Royals. We're a long ways away from that. It's going to do it. Hey, everybody, have yourself a great Christmas. Thanks for tuning in. Geroge Petak, thank you for what you did for the state of Wisconsin. Thank you very much. Rest in peace. Our condolences to you, the family, the Petak family. George did a brave thing, changing his vote, and cost him his political career. But he'll always go down as one of the guys, one of the people who helped save baseball here in the state of Wisconsin. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen to every day. Your second listen, go to Locked On MLB. My guy Sully's got all the Hot Stove League news there. Chuck Freeman, good night, everybody.